We have to cut this part later. Welcome to another episode of the Silk and Steel podcast. I am your host, Carl Zah. Today we have a very special episode for you guys. I have a special guest all the way from China. Actually, I don't know where you are in China even. So, Mr. Adrian, why don't you introduce yourself to my audience? Because this is all I know right now is this show is going to be about wrestling and wrestling in China. So here to
Sure.
explain. I have Adrian himself, all the way from China. Which part of China, by the way?
Right now, I'm in Harbin, China. I've been living
Oh,
in Harbin, China, for about 12 years, which is the
wow.
northernmost major city in China.
I apologize if I'm eating because I haven't eaten lunch. Um, this is what I'm eating. This Chinese liangao, the rice cake. It's sweet.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, it's sweet
Yeah,
rice cake, and I just need some nutrients. So Harbin,
yeah,
wow.
go ahead.
I was expecting you say something like I've been in China for 4 to 5 years, and I was expecting you to be some like coastal city like Shanghai or like Beijing or Shenzhen even. But Harbin is like way the fuck up in the north. It's like so for people who don't know China's geography, uh Harbin is like the Siberia of China. It's like
That's right.
way it's pretty close. You're already close to the Russian border. Like the Harbin
Right.
what Harbin is famous for is the ice sculpture in the city. It's like every winter
That's right.
they hold an ice sculpture festival. They'll invite artists from all over the world to carve ice sculpture in the city because the whole place just get frozen over. I mean, okay, so I let me ask you, how did you end up in China, and then how did you end up in Harbin?
Well, I ended up in Harbin because actually I was watching my favorite TV host, Anthony Bourdain,
No way.
and he did an episode in Harbin. So I was in America. I had just finished. I did a course. Finished a term in Mexico. So I'm American, by the way, and I'm from I'm from Phoenix, Arizona, and I right after I had finished doing this TESOL course in Guanajuato, Mexico, I'd come back and I had this travel bug, you know.
And the TESOL course is teaching English as second language. That's a
That's right.
teaching
That's right.
certificate. Okay, got it. Okay.
Yeah, and I did that in Guanajuato, Mexico. And when I came back to the states, right? When I came back to the states, I pretty much was just obsessed with, at that point in my life, with Anthony Bourdain. I was just He was like my idol.
Great show.
Okay, I had all
Great
his,
show.
yeah, I had all his books. I would just dig up all his quotes. I pretty much whatever he liked, I liked. I was really at a very it was a very I would say I was obsessed.
So he did
Positive
an
way.
episode in Harbin. I didn't even know that.
That's right. He did an episode in Harbin, and in my opinion, I thought it was one of like the most best produced. Not the No Reservation show. I mean that episode. That episode, I was just completely in awe by what he presented. It just seemed like the most strange place I'd ever seen in my life because he showed off. He showed, obviously it's in China, but he also was able to show this world that I think a lot of foreigners outside of China don't really know exists. When we, like you said, when we think of China, we think of Shanghai or Beijing, Shenzhen, or also we kind of sometimes think it's very tropical, right? Like your backdrop here.
I'm
But
laughing
when you
because you're
see
in
like this,
Harbin. Sorry, because for people who don't know China, Harbin is way the fuck north, and it's
yeah,
freezing in the winter time. But so go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, yeah, and so industrial in the middle of like a cold like plain. It was like you know what I mean, and there was the Russian influence there. I thought the Sophia Church in pictures, in video, I never saw anything that looked like as amazing as that. Just the fact that it was literally right in Asia, where I think I would be able to that something like that existed. Yet Eurasia is so huge. Of course, there would be European or Russian influence in China, but at the time we just didn't see that, and it just seems like such a mix of cultures. And the Dongbei culture itself, which Anthony Bourdain tried to explain, what the Dongbei culture was, and it was just so fascinating. And I just decided, you know what, I really have to stop everything in my life and go to Harbin.
Is not like other places in China. It's a rust belt. It's a rust belt of China. It's in flat plains.
Mm-hmm.
It has the same climate as Siberia, and as you mentioned, it has a lot of Russian influence because the colonial history back in the 19th century. There's a bit of Japanese experience as bit of Japanese influence as well, because Dongbei was occupied by Japan for 14 years and before World War II. So there are all these kind of different mixes, and so you watched the show and you told yourself you want to go to Harbin.
Now I'm here still 12 years later. How
did you arrange that? I mean, you watch the show, you're like, oh wow, this is a fascinating place, I want to check it out. But how did you go about to just like go pack up and just go?
Thankfully, there are a lot of resources online, as far as like message boards and some ESL books and those kind of resources. So I was able to actually zoom in on Harbin relatively easily.
Basically went online and you searched English teaching job in Harbin.
Exactly.
Okay.
It had to be Harbin. It had to be Harbin.
Okay. Because I'm asking you because I have a lot of followers who at this point are probably thinking about going to China or how they're going to go to China. So this might be of interest to them. But I think for you, it helps that you already have the teaching certificate, because I have people asking me about teaching English in China. What I heard is that, because of tightening restriction in more recent years, like nowadays, you really need that certificate. Like back then, you can just washed up in China and like easily get an English teaching job. But what I heard is in more recent years, like they're really looking at, like your qualification, like a certificate. Okay, so you confirm. Okay.
I guess you could say last 2-3 years, maybe.
Yeah.
However, as far as your followers who are still thinking about doing this, basically doing what I did, basically you're gonna need it's better during this post-COVID era. I would say that there's still a demand for teachers. You just have to understand that it's nothing as easy as it used to be. You know what I mean? Things are just getting, and for the better, I feel, to be honest. Like you said, people used to literally be able to just drop in here, well, regardless of their history, regardless of their background, regardless of their qualifications. And, there was a little bit like riffraff in that community. But in the last few years, I would say the last 3 or 4 years, I would say like the quality of the teachers, the quality of the people that live here who want to do this job are really definitely have more qualifications and more often more experience than before. So I think that's a good thing. It's like that now.
Yeah, definitely better for the Chinese students. They're receiving better quality for their, more bang for their buck, so to speak. And but you really early, man. 12 years ago in China was a totally different world, man. Like I used to tell people, in China, every 10 years is like a generation, because the experience growing up in China is so different from like say 90s versus 80s versus 2000 versus 2010s, and now we're into 2022, like so So you went to China in what, like that's you went to China in 2010, right? 2010.
That's right. 2010, right?
We might be. What month did you go? We might went to China around the same time because I went to China in 2010 on a visit, on a family visit, because my little cousin was getting married in Tianjin. So I did a China trip. That was actually my first time being in northern China. Like I grew up in China. I was born in China in 1976. I grew up in Chongqing, and I traveled extensively in southern China, but I never really crossed the Yangtze River. I think I never went to the northern side, and it was eye-opening experience for me because I remember taking the train, taking the high. Oh, at the time they did had they're just starting building high speed train in 2010. They're just starting building high speed train. While I was taking the train, I saw when the train moved to northern China, it was like, wow, this is so flat. This is so like American Midwest, like the scenery. I grew up with mountains and rivers, but in north is more drier, and it really reminds me of American Midwest, which is also where I grew up. I spent a lot of time in Chicago. Okay, but you landed directly in Harbin, so I want to know a little bit more about your experience, like the cultural shock and because I know for somebody who grew up in United States, going to China for the first time must be like landing a different planet. Or am I close?
Well, I am a military. I'm a military brat.
You traveled, okay? You had travel experience.
So I lived in Japan for 5 years.
Oh wow!
Prior to that,
okay.
I've lived in Germany and several states, and I'm not gonna say I didn't have culture shock. I certainly did have culture shock, especially given that at the amount of information about China compared to, for example, I guess you could say a more Western aligned country is less so. So there's not so much to prepare anyone to go there just full on. And like you said, the full on culture shock did happen for sure. I'm not. I would say actually the first year was a little bit difficult for me.
Did you know any Chinese when you landed? Wow.
Not at all.
Yeah, I can imagine, because I can imagine there are a lot of English speakers in places like Beijing, Shanghai, Shenzhen, but in Harbin, I don't know. I've never been to Harbin. I don't. You can tell us what was it like in 2010.
Yeah, I mean, in 2010, it was. I can only compare. The best I can do is compare 2010 to 2022.
Yeah.
Okay. 2010 to 2022, I would say has definitely you can see, you can feel a level of development that really I think you couldn't see. It's so rapid, it's so fast, and the quality of life. That's one thing I can say. Let me say this part. In 2010, I was able. There was a lot of. I would say that you could see that there was some level of like poverty that I didn't see before.
Yep.
But like in 2022, a high quality life compared to before. I could see that the development, there's a subway system. The subway system in Harbin is actually quite advanced. Actually, that might surprise people, but even a city like Harbin has a pretty decent public transportation system.
When you're coming from the frame of reference of United States, it almost seems like a lot of places in the world have better public infrastructures. I live in both in Chicago and LA. I mean, Chicago has a better public infrastructure than other cities, but man, like even so, it doesn't compare. It doesn't compare to what China has built in last 10, 20 years. I remember 2010 when I went to China, they just started to build a high speed rail network. Like we actually made a point to ride the high speed rail between Beijing and Tianjin, and that was the first section that was completed. That was 2010. Now I think there's you can take a high speed rail from Harbin to Beijing now, right?
Oh yeah. High speed rail. You can take it from Harbin to pretty much every major city.
Yeah.
In fact, the high speed rail today is just so. Oh my gosh, it's so convenient. It's great. And actually, I had a business trip. I was asked to join a project, an event, wrestling related, and unfortunately, there was no high speed rail. It was one of the few times where it's a town in Jilin. So I'm like, how do I get to this city in Jilin? And by the way, the town was called Tonglin, I think. Anyway, there was no direct high speed rail there. So I decided I don't want to go because it would actually take about. I would have to go on like 3 different slow lines. Like slow train lines.
Yeah.
First, I'd have to go to Shenyang.
Yeah.
First, I'd have to go to Shenyang. Then I have to take the slow train to this other city. Then I'm like, you know what? I'll wait for that city to get a high speed rail next time because I'm not gonna take it. And it's just, it surprised me. It just surprised me because I was just so used to in the last several years. Everywhere I went, there was a high speed rail. But thankfully, I would say even that city that we're talking about, oh my gosh, I can't remember what it's called. Even that small city, I think maybe in the next few years, we'll definitely have one. Because Harbin, all over small cities like Mudang, Qiqihar, Jiamusi, Heihe, all those cities now there's a fast trade line.
Oh wow. Okay. All these cities are you mentioned for my listeners are city within the Heilongjiang province, which is the northernmost province of China.
And it's a huge province.
Yeah.
Huge province. So
it's pretty big.
So all these cities are
the whole that whole area used to be known as Manchuria. There's 3 provinces of Dongbei. The entire area together is about the size of Alaska. So that's a reference for my American listeners. You can know how big that place is. I have a question. When you first landed in China, did you imagine you will stay on for 12 years?
I didn't imagine I would stay in Harbin for 12 years.
Okay.
Actually, I wanted to go to Xinjiang. I wanted to go to Urumqi.
Yeah.
However, I got married to a Harbin girl.
Yeah, that's what happened. That happens to everybody. Now I want to switch track to talk about what you do, which what made me invite you on the show. Is how did you transition from teaching English to get involved in wrestling?
Okay, well, I'm a wrestling fan, so let's start there.
Okay.
And by the way, I if you don't mind, I'd just like to ask you. I'm not expecting. Yeah, I'm not expecting you to know so much about pro wrestling, but I just want to know. You said you grew up in the States, right?
Yeah, after I was 13, after 1990. Yeah, okay. So that's another question I was going to ask you. What type of wrestling?
So did you watch?
There's like Greco-Roman wrestling. There's competition we have in high school, but you're talking about specific type of wrestling. You're talking about the pro wrestling, the WWF. Now it's the WWE, right? WWE before used to WWF. On American television. That's something I was exposed to when I first moved to US in 1990. And back then I was like, man, this is crazy. This is wild. For a long time, I try to figure out, okay, is it for real? I mean, are they really doing that? Is that guy did really smash a chair on the other guy's head? But after a while, I figured out it was for show. But it's very entertaining. I did find it very entertaining. I mean, this it's like the quintessential. I think it's like quintessential America, like a part of U.S. culture, pro wrestling. That's how I would describe it. Yeah.
So as a wrestling fan, and I would say most Americans or most people who spent you know their childhood in America, grew up in America, do have a small connection to wrestling.
Oh yeah.
And but me personally, I was a fan. Okay, and I've always been a fan. And even when I went to China, I brought my fandom with me. Now, even maybe in the first like 6 months or so, I didn't pay too much attention to what's going on in like the WWE and all that. But because of like culture shock
Yeah,
and,
yeah, yeah.
you know what I mean, and just getting comfortable and that kind of thing. But after I kind of started to relax a bit and get my routine in, I started I felt I need to watch more wrestling. But I'm in
Wait, hold
China.
on. How
So
how do you watch pro wrestling in China? Like not on television, right? You go on the internet.
So this is actually, I could say like this is like really some seeds here, where at the time, while living in China, obviously I couldn't access some websites like YouTube and Twitter and those sites. So
Yeah.
I had to use the Chinese based websites. So actually, it turned out by simple search on Baidu, if you write WWE, you get thousands and thousands of results. And there is websites like video platforms like Yoku, Tudo, and several others that have thousands of WWE videos. And then you look at the views, which are in the tens of thousands. And then you look at the comment section. People are talking, they're arguing. I didn't understand what they're saying. They're speaking Chinese, but they're talking about it, right? I'm like, oh, wow. There's a huge fan base of wrestling fans on the internet in China.
Yeah.
And of course, all of it was uploaded probably illegally. I mean, it was just, this is all uploaded, with no trademark, whatever.
This was 12 years ago.
Minutes.
This is before like Youku and Tudo have to force to clean up their act, because like I think they had to be more stringent on copyright protection after they listed on the New York Stock Exchange. But before that, it was everything goes, because like they're not required to do anything. And I do remember I found a lot of like foreign movies, documentaries, almost like everything you can imaginable on the Chinese social media platform. Like I can, like it's a lot of stuff we don't get in the United States. They will have French movies, like Moroccan movies, subtitled in Chinese and uploaded in YouTube, Youku and Tudo. It was great. It was great.
And you could see that there was a fan base.
Yes.
So that actually fascinated me. It made me realize, okay, there are wrestling fans in China that I can talk to. Maybe I can find some local ones and local fans. So that right there was my source of watching wrestling in China. I'd go to Youku, I'd go to 2 Minutes, they uploaded there. It's already got thousands and thousands and thousands of views, hundreds of comments within a day. And I'm like, okay, there's a fan base here. There is a fan base. Naturally, from there, I was not only a WWE fan in America, I was an independent wrestling fan. So when I went to school in San Antonio, Texas, I would go to the local wrestling shows. And I was really into this scene, this independent wrestling scene, the scene that's underground. And I learned a lot in those experiences, because actually in those few years when I was going to independent wrestling shows, I started to get a little bit more involved. I would talk to the owner and the promoter. I would ask him questions. I would come early, see if I could set up the chairs, see if I could set up this. Maybe I can help take down the ring. Barbed wire ropes match, where they put barbed wire around the ropes so the wrestlers can throw each other in the wire. And I was the one helping put the wire up. And, all of this stuff, I was always had this thought in my mind. I'm like, maybe one day I'll do this. Maybe I'll run my own show. Maybe I will be a wrestling promoter. However, there was that Anthony Bourdain episode that kind of, pulled me to China. But believe it or not, that feeling of wanting to be a wrestling promoter never actually left me, even though I was thousands and thousands and thousands of kilometers to the east.
Or to the west, because China is on the west coast of Pacific. It's all perspective. But okay, so how did you do next? I'm dying to know what did you do next to transition from being a fan to actually promoting it in China of all places?
Interestingly enough, the more I got involved in like the wrestling fan community in China, the more and my Chinese started to improve a bit. I started taking Chinese, the language. That's another thing. Like I try to take it. I try to understand it for the purpose of being able to communicate with people about wrestling. Really, like I'm like, wrestling vocabulary was like one of the first vocabulary I learned in China.
Wow.
And and ask, is there Chinese wrestling? Is there Chinese wrestling? Like there has to be something. I said, like, really, believe it or not, 99% of people said no, no, and no. It just doesn't exist. But I didn't believe that. It's just no way. This country is so big. Somebody has put together a little ring inside some little abandoned some abandoned factory and done a wrestling show. Someone has done it. Must have. No way. And eventually, I did come across somebody who said, you know what? There is somebody. There is somebody who's doing wrestling in China. And prior to this person, now let me go back a little bit. There has been a few small tours in China by some wrestling companies. WWE did their first wrestling tour in China in 2010 at the Shanghai World Expo. There was a company called WWN who did a tour in, I think it was Wuhan, Beijing, and Tianjin. And there's been a few Japanese wrestling companies who have come to China. But aside from that, that's it. That's it. So I wanted to ask, again, I kept digging. There has to be some local product. And somebody talked to me about a person named The Slam. Now, The Slam is a Chinese wrestler. His name is The Slam.
His name is just a Slam. Okay.
Yeah, The Slam. The Slam he's from Dongguan. And he's someone who's he's a huge wrestling fan, and he got trained in a business. So he did a business trip to South Korea. And I guess in that period, he joined a wrestling school and during the business trip. So when he came back to China, he tried to teach people what he learned in that school. And he built his own little small organization called the CWE. And there I was able to search CWE, Chinese Wrestling Entertainment.
Okay.
Yeah. And
so
I found his Yoku
I'm
page.
sorry to interrupt, but this is set up along the line of pro wrestling in United States. It's just the same kind of what we expect. Okay, great. Yeah.
Yeah. Entertainment wrestling. Yeah. We'll just call it that, entertainment wrestling. Yeah. And I found his content online. He has a website. You can check it out. It's called CW30, CW3.com. And he promotes his school. He promotes an online show where he basically films. He would film pretty much with a cell phone camera, very small. He just fascinated, like, okay, if I want to do wrestling, I probably have to talk to this guy. That's the guy I need to talk to. And then before I went to go meet him, I also asked on Facebook. I said, is there anyone who knows anything about wrestling in China? Anything like local wrestling, people who can help me. I'm looking for a team because I'm thinking about opening a wrestling company. And I got contacted by a person named Ho Ho Loon. And Ho Ho Loon is a Hong Kong-based wrestler who had been trained by the Slam. He was trained by the Slam, and then in Hong Kong he opened his own wrestling company. So he said, let's meet. And then a wrestling station inside of in Taiwan contacted me and said, hey, if you want to do wrestling in China, we've been doing it here in Taipei for 7-8 years. I said, cool. So I'm going to make a trip. I'm going to go to Taiwan. I'm going to go to Dongguan. I'm going to go to Hong Kong. And I did that. I made a business trip. I went to all these places and I just asked them, what's your experience with wrestling in China? What are you, how did you get started? And how can you help me? Because I need help and I have this idea. And I think if we all work together, maybe we can do something that could maybe make it bigger. And that's why I became friends with these guys. And I came up with this name of MKW, Middle Kingdom Wrestling.
Nice.
And
by the way, that's a great name.
Yeah. And thank you. And I had a lot of support from people, because here's the thing: in China, everybody is trying to make a living. I mean, these people that I'm talking about, like Ho Ho Lun, the Slam, and the wrestling organizations in Taipei, they're all our dream. Their dream is to make a living doing what they love. So they're not going to be like, oh, Adrian, don't come in here, or whatever. They kind of, maybe they saw me as an opportunity to be like, okay, maybe I have a good idea. Maybe this could work. And as long as everybody can make some money and the wrestling scene can get bigger, then maybe this is benefit everyone. So I really had a lot of support from people, and people weren't like gatekeeping me or guarding me. Also, remember, I'm American. I don't want to like, and there is that cultural barrier. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's necessarily, about my nationality. It's more about my culture, So, we're all trying to work together, and I know I have a cultural, there is a bit of a barrier there, but everybody was still really, really, really cool and really helpful. And I do thank people like Ho Ho Lun and the Slam for helping me get to where I am with MKW. And I would say right now, we're the biggest wrestling company in China today.
Nice. So where did you go from there? Like after you made the contact in Hong Kong, in in Taiwan, so you gain all this knowledge of the networking. What came out of that? Tell my audience.
What came out of that was our first wrestling show, which our debut event. And our debut event, money was very sparse. So we had to make sure that this debut wrestling event of MKW would have to be as big as possible. Now, in retrospect, it really wasn't that big. When I look at it, it's such a small show, but we tried to make it as like this big deal, and we filmed it. We filmed it with quality film equipment. That was a priority for me. I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to do this again. So we better film it and make this footage last for years. Maybe we can re-edit this film again and again and again to look like we're having matches all the time.
Nice.
So that was kind of one of my my ideas was content. We're just filming things. We did 2 day shows. I'm going to use this content for a year if I have to, for a year. And I think MKW.
Can people still access? Can people see your first ever wrestling match somewhere on the internet? Do you have like a URL to share with people? Well, where can people go watch?
Just type Middle Kingdom Wrestling
Okay.
on. I recommend people do not watch just our first show because um, I would say there's some growing pains for sure.
How
But
long
I would
ago was
say the
that?
quality.
How long ago was your first show?
2015 July.
7 years ago, almost.
Yeah.
Okay.
Really, I would say in that sense, it was successful as far as creating a splash. A lot of people, we got a lot of attention. And I think before then, a lot of the wrestling promote like the Slam and Ho Ho Lun, I think they didn't have because they're in Hong Kong and China, because they're maybe don't have too much connections with the America at that point. A lot of people didn't know what they were doing in China, but I told everybody, like all the independent wrestling promotions that I know. I said, we're doing wrestling in China. And we actually got a lot of international attention. Nice. Because they're like, wow, this is the first wrestling company in China. And I knew we could get some leverage of attention with that, at least that unique very soon afterwards, I even had like interview opportunities with like China Daily, with Fortune, what's that magazine called? Forbes.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah. We haven't made any money, but Forbes called.
Nice.
I don't know. I think we just hit a really good level of internet hype that caused people to really look at us. And that helped a lot. And it helped people. It helped us get over our growing pains. People had confidence in us because of the way we marketed it. I do think the way we marketed it was really helped us in the initial period more than other promotions who maybe not have had that unique factor. We are the first Chinese wrestling company. Can go a long way, even though technically we weren't. But we had the access of the internet connection with the wrestling community outside of China, which actually supported us a lot.
So tell us what happened then. I'm waiting for the story to develop.
Yeah. So after we did that first show, it really caused the Chinese wrestling scene. I really feel this. Our show, the MKW show, caused the Chinese wrestling scene to become more active. So like I think other people were like, oh, there's this new company called MKW. And then a few other companies started opening up. Okay. And this really made Chinese wrestling scene feel very active. I would say in 2016 and 2017, the Chinese wrestling scene felt like it opened with all these new local promotions like KOPW, WLW. KOPW is in Guangzhou. WLW is in Shenyang, not far from Harbin.
Wait, so you are let me ask you, originally, before I talk to you, I just assume you're in one of the big coastal cities because, that's where WWE first came to do their show. And you are based in Harbin, but is your show in Harbin or you just go around to all over China to do promotion wherever you need it?
We go around wherever we feel. We go around, based on our budget and based on where we feel we'll be able to draw the most people. Mm-hmm. Yes, we do run a lot in Harbin. And yes, that is because we're based there. But like, we would like to consider ourselves not like as like a Harbin wrestling company. Mm-hmm. We are a Chinese wrestling company. Or actually today, we're not just a Chinese wrestling company, we're a Belt and Road wrestling company.
Nice.
We've run a lot. Okay. Nice. Okay. Since the virus pandemic, we have definitely been very Harbin based. Mm-hmm, right. Because it's hard to travel. Very hard to travel.
So even inside China, there's travel restrictions now.
Oh, absolutely. I would say um, you we had a tour.
Mm-hmm.
We had a tour from in Chongqing. Now keep this in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Chongqing is just an hour and a half on the speed rail from
Yeah.
Harbin, and that tour got canceled like 6 times. It was
Wow.
supposed to happen. It was supposed to happen in August. It was supposed to happen in August, and every month it got canceled because of the because we had to organize more than a dozen people
Mm-hmm.
to travel to Chongqing. But if one city had the case,
Yeah. Yeah.
or if another city had a person couldn't, or this person
Yeah.
couldn't make it, or if Harbin got the virus case, then I can't make it.
Right.
So it definitely complicated, very complicated.
Mm-hmm.
However, it is what it is, and we just have to work within that framework on how to promote and produce shows
Mm-hmm.
that hopefully give the fans what they want, but
Okay.
also in a safe way that is
Yeah.
good for the public health.
So you're a wrestling promoter. What about actual wrestler? Where do you find these? Where do you get your wrestlers?
Um, very fortunate to say that a good base of our initial wrestlers came from people already in China. So there is a the foreign expat community. There are a few wrestlers in the foreign expat community. They were wrestlers back home.
Okay.
They were wrestlers back home. Now they didn't come to China only to be wrestlers.
Yeah,
they just were people who learned wrestling and did wrestling shows in their hometowns. And when they came to China, maybe they didn't think they would wrestle ever again. Yeah. But I'm like, through these promotions, hey, we need a wrestler. Oh, you are trained. Oh, you've had matches already before. Great, let's try it. And we've had several wrestlers through this way, through our foreign wrestlers. As for Chinese wrestlers, I told you about the Slam. Mm-hmm. The Slam had trained, a good, as far as I know, maybe. So we had that base of wrestlers. So, I was able to use the Slams wrestlers. I was able to use Ho Ho Lun's Hong Kong-based wrestlers, and also the wrestlers who reached out to me, who said, "Hey, Adrian, I was a wrestler in the UK. I was a wrestler in America. Do you think I can wrestle for you?" And we just talk. I see their matches. Okay, this seems fine. Let's go ahead and give it a try and see what the fans think.
By the way, as I'm talking to you, I just went to your website, the middlekingdomwrestling.com. Looking pretty good. I mean, like this is good stuff. I'm just looking at the pictures right now. It's looking good. People should go check it out. For my listeners who are listening right now, go check out middlekingdomwrestling.com.
Sure, and on so many of our matches, and you can see. And yes, you asked me before if they could see our first show. They can definitely see our first show. I recommend they see our latest content, which is all up on Middle Kingdom Wrestling YouTube.
Okay. So wow. So how? I mean, like, did you find it pretty easy to grow the interest in wrestling in China, pro wrestling? Because this is still, I mean, even though it has all these views on Youku and Tudo before, but I still imagine this is still a very novel concept for like the wider general Chinese audience.
Yeah, local independent wrestling is still very niche. Mm-hmm. As you say, it's still a novel concept. So we have to find, and you asked, is it easy? No, it is extremely, I would like to say, extremely difficult. You have to devote your life to it. And thankfully, I'm in the position to be able to do that right now. Now, the WWE, when they come to China, they can draw 10,000 fans. So it's still the WWE fan base is huge in China. The independent wrestling fan base, yes, is much smaller.
So
however,
you're doing this full time right now. This is your job.
I've been doing it full time since pretty much since the pandemic.
Oh, okay. Since 2019. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is you like even despite all the the challenge of travel restrictions and everything, you guys still can get show on. I mean, like currently, are you guys still have shows lining up?
Yeah, I mean, we just had a tour recently. Last month, we did a tour actually called the Sino. It was actually sponsored between the U.S. consulate in the local cities of Chongqing and Harbin.
Nice.
It was called the Sino American Friendship Pro Wrestling tournament. Okay, and
okay. You mentioned earlier in our interview that you married a Harbin girl. That's why you settled down there. How did your wife think about your new career? Let me ask that.
Well, I have to say she's been extremely supportive, and I'm very
nice.
So grateful. I'm so grateful that she works. She has a cat business. She sells cats. The Sphinx. We have Sphinx. In fact, if you want to see a Sphinx cat, I have a Sphinx cat, a hairless Sphinx cat.
Bring it on. Bring it on. Let's bring do a cat show on Silk and Steel right now. You have it in your room?
Yeah. It's outside my room. I don't want it bothering the interview process. Okay. But anyway, she does her own stuff, and even though she does her own stuff, she still always makes time to be able to deal with the headaches. Obviously, there is still always a language barrier that I have to deal with. Running this in MKW, and she's always there, no matter what. I really am, and of course, just the emotional and all the support that she provides. It's wrestling is hard in China, and you need somebody to at least be supportive spiritually, and she's more than that. So yeah, very thankful for that.
Yeah, I still recommend people go check out the site Middle Kingdom Wrestling. Now, is it just is there in English? Because most I see it's mostly in Chinese. Is there like an English version of this?
Well, but actually, at this,
go ahead.
Go on.
No, actually, I mean, I'm just looking at the picture, so maybe it doesn't really matter. Oh, I see some English content now. Like in the news section, there is in English. Results, but I like these. I just like these pictures. It's great. I can read Chinese, so I can navigate. Go ahead.
I think the photos from our photographers and our videographers, I think they do a really great job of showing how fun it is. I mean, I just want to show how fun it is, because here's the thing about wrestling is at the end of the day, whether you're watching it or whether you're in it, whether you're doing it or whether you're a promoter, you got to be having fun. And hopefully this content on the website that you see, hopefully our interview, the people who are watching, they all can just at least feel that we're having fun. I think that's really important.
Wow, there's a couple of giants there. I saw a picture of you, of your in the about section. I think about us. I saw you posting with the wrestlers. There's a huge guy in the back. He's like towering over the rest. Wow, it
Maybe
looks
it's
good,
up.
man.
It's up.
I have to say, it looks good. Pro wrestling with Chinese characteristic. I like that. uh,
And that's the way we've tried to market ourselves differently, not
mhm.
just for like business marketing, but also just for, the foundation of what we are. We are a wrestling company in China. So we want to take on what makes wrestling wrestling, but also be able to show people, what, this is a different kind of wrestling. This
Yes.
is wrestling with Chinese characteristics. So we have elements of that, of the Chinese culture, that the Chinese wrestlers bring into it. The Chinese wrestlers bring this into it, and I say that to them all the time. I say, do, when you're performing, do what will make the crowd connect with you more. And obviously, Chinese people are able to express themselves without me giving them direction on how to express their character. So I say, this is, you have your own style that you enjoy, and you need to go out there and show people what kind of person you represent as a wrestler. And of course, I'm so thankful to have a lot of great people, wrestlers who work for us, who are able to just really get that kind of character across to the audience, whether it's in live or in the video.
How did you promote like the idea of pro wrestling? I mean, did you hold seminars? Did you like do traveling shows and like, or just put on internet, I'm sure you probably done all the above, but tell us in your own words, how did you try to popularize the sport?
Well, one of the ways that we try to do it, in the beginning, I kind of had like a very American point of view, where I'm like, we need to have really, really awesome, huge shows with like super high production and that kind of thing. Where, and I started to realize after a while, what? Let's take let's start showing the positive aspects of wrestling. What are some things that wrestling presents positively? One of the things would be sports, sports development, cultural connection, even promoting certain initiatives like the Belt and Road Initiative, which we actually have our own belt called the Belt and Road Championship, the
Nice.
and and we've had we even promoted wrestling. We had when we did the Belt and Road Championship tournament, we brought in 12 wrestlers, each one of them representing their country along the Belt and Road. We had India,
Wow.
Mongolia, Slovenia, Austria, Philippines, and so on. And we did this 12 country tournament. And we did it in China. And we did this 12 country tournament. And of course, we did it in China. And given the artistic liberties we can take with pro wrestling, because this is a sports oriented entertainment show. So, in China, we can make the Chinese person win the tournament, which we did. But we can also do the tournament in Nepal. So we did in Kathmandu. We actually did the Belt and Road Championship tournament, and in that tournament, we had the Nepalese win.
Nice.
And okay, so we wanted, before the pandemic, we wanted to do the tournament, the Belt and Road Championship tournament in Malaysia, and where we were obviously going to do that. Of course, that canceled it. We also in 2021 we were planning on doing it in Myanmar.
Nice.
I do business in Myanmar, but of course, since the coup, that's been a bit
borders
hard. But
and the pandemic.
but we had a logo prepared. Yeah, we had a logo prepared. We had a lot of stuff prepared for the Belt and Road Championship tournament in Myanmar and Malaysia. But these days, we're just finding ways to promote wrestling in a positive way, where it's not just who's the best, or it's not just like storylines about hitting people with chairs. No, we also want to find like interesting ways to show and exploit the positive cultural development of wrestling.
I just saw
Again,
that you also have a YouTube channel. So for people, people can go search Mid Kingdoms Wrestling on YouTube. It has all your videos. People can watch directly on YouTube all your shows. The latest I see was from your Christmas show, like recently, like or the not the Chinese New Year, but the oh no, it is Happy Chinese New Year from MKW. Nice. Yeah, I highly recommend people go check it out. It looks very. I haven't clicked on any of them yet because I'm talking to you, but it looks very entertaining just from the thumbnails. So yeah,
thank you.
good job.
Thank you.
Good job.
You're in Indonesia, and Indonesia is a part of the Belt and Road as well. So we hope to hopefully find some unique ways to promote wrestling along all Belt and Road countries, because we feel that the pro wrestling development can benefit the whole world, and that's why we're actually going to debut a new program next month. Not next month, this month, called the Belt and Road Pro Wrestling Expansion Link. Anyway, that's a whole different project, but we're just trying to find and explore ways where wrestling can be promoted in a way where it's never been promoted before, where it's not only about
where can people follow you, check out your stuff besides the YouTube channel and middlekingdoms.com website? Adrian?
Sure. I mean, we have a Twitter. Our Twitter is MKW Wrestling. We have an Instagram, which is MKW China. And if you are, may I ask, what's your fan base in China? I mean, I think you must have a demographic within China that are listening.
I think so too, but most of my because most of my content is in English, right? Because I design my show to for the English audience try to understand China. So there is my audience in China is either expat community who or some Chinese who are pretty fluent in English. They have no problem with the language skills. They maybe because they follow me, maybe because I gain a little bit notoriety by I think debating Lyman Stone, and then and also because I appear on the Sky News TV in Australia, and that those clips went a little bit viral in China. Somebody dug it up and translated, put subtitle on it. So maybe we're
on.
Go ahead.
We're on Weibo. We're on Weibo. MKW Shuaijiao Wangguo. I mean, our name in Chinese is MKW Shuaijiao Wangguo. So you can find us on Weibo, on pretty much any video platform. Of course, we have a WeChat account, WeChat public account. We have a Douyin. We have everything.
Yeah. And do you have TikTok as well, like a global TikTok? I know Douyin is like the Chinese TikTok, right? The like for people who are not in China.
Right. We don't have a global. Yeah, we don't have a global TikTok actually. Okay. We focus on the I guess you could say the Chinese TikTok.
Yeah,
or Douyin.
Yeah. This is great. I mean, like the reason I invited you is just so because I never imagined pro wrestling in China, and I never imagined like the guy who is organizing and promoting it is one of my follower and my patrons. So I'm like, I gotta have him on the show, and I'm really glad you could make it. Is there anything else you want to share with my audience?
If you guys are curious about what we're doing, just please subscribe and like. our content on YouTube, on Twitter.
Yeah, definitely check it out. It's it's definitely go check out their YouTube channel, check out their website, midkingdomwrestling.com. I mean, like, I think I haven't even clicked on the actual video itself, but I already felt entertained. It looks really fun. And I think that's one of the biggest draw of wrestling, at least in US. It's an entertainment, right? It's a fun part. And I that's the one that I think a lot of people will find it very enjoyable. So I highly recommend people check it out. And thank you very much, Adrian, for making the time to appear on the Silk and Steel podcast.
Thank you for inviting.
Yeah, and to share your experience,
Really?
because there's the expat community in China has grown leaps and bounds since when you first landed in 2010, and it's always interesting to hear kind of the different facet of life and like how you're basically pursuing your passion right now. You're living your dream of pursuing this your one-time hobby, your passion, this program. I mean, good luck to you, man. This is a really inspiring. I mean, like, a lot of people could probably wish they live to pursue their own dreams. You are actually living it. So the props to you. And again, thank you for coming to the show. I wish you all the success in the year in the Oh, and happy Chinese New Year, everybody. It has been Chinese New Year for a couple of days, but I wish you all the success in the new year of the tiger. So, yeah.
That's right.
Thank you, Adrian. Thank you for making this appearance. And everyone in my audience, check out his website, check out his YouTube channel. Yeah, and for the people who are in China, check out his Weibo, WeChat. Send me the links too, so I can put it on the show notes. And so people can follow. So
sure.
Thank you very much, and thank you everyone for listening. Until next time, bye bye.